Welcome back into the Locked On Packers Squad Show. I'm your host. My name is Brandon Sneide. Look, many questions face this Packers offseason, and the biggest one may have just been answered by Brian Gutekunst at the NFL Combine.
I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers. And speaking of Brian Gutekunst, he didn't come out and outright say it, but I heard, hey guys, this is on you now.
Hey, this is Jags. The coaching calendar just keeps on ticking through the spring.
Go Pack Go! It's the Packers Squad. Everything Green Bay Packers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Titletown. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the frozen tundra with all the cheeseheads, the Packers Squad Show starts now.
Locked On Packers, parts of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get them. Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts. You will certainly find the Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, the show for the fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to each and every single one of you who continues to make Locked On Packers your first listen each and every day. Jam-packed episode of the Locked On Packers Squad Show this evening. The offseason, as we have mentioned, continues on for the Packers. The big question everyone's asking, what do they need to do to take the next step? We'll dive into that. Brian Gutekunst giving maybe the answer to that question. We'll dive into what he said at the NFL Combine. We'll also spotlight what player on this current roster, we'll have some fun at the end of the show, which player on this current roster has the most to prove in 2026. And it can be anybody. Is it Jordan Love? Is it Micah Parsons? We'll dive in to those names at the end of the show. And our free agency focus will continue on. We'll highlight free agents in the offensive line, the tight end room, and defensive line. Where do the Packers go from there? Who do they keep? Who can they maybe add from the outside? But as we mentioned, the NFL Draft Combine in Indy. Coach, it's taken place. Walk me through this NFL Draft Combine. How does this work from a coaching perspective? Are you guys watching the tape? What draft tape study are you actually looking at? What traits are you looking for on offense? The Packers may or may not be in the business of drafting an offensive guy in the first few rounds. They obviously don't have a first-round draft pick this season or next, but they do have a second and so on. So I'm always curious from a coach's perspective what you guys are looking for when you're studying tape from these prospects throughout college football. Is it something you're doing all year long? Is it something you're doing after the season ends? What traits are we looking for? What character flaws are we looking for? What goes into the NFL Draft Combine from a coach's point of view?
What a great question. It's a really long answer.
It's a very loaded question. I apologize for the loaded question, but
it took you 2 minutes to ask it too, Brandon. Jeez.
Right. I used to love the Combine. It was so much fun because it was almost like a coaches convention. All the coaches are there. First of all the coaches are at the Senior Bowl, and then they go to the Combine, and then after the Combine they have the workouts and everything. But the thing is, the draft, as you're getting to the Combine, all year round, there are regional scouts on each football team that go all over the country. And those guys work tirelessly. I think they're on the road 300 days out of 365 days of the year. So it's really, really hard on like families. If you're a scout, it's a really hard job because you're always on the road. You're really never home. But the thing is, when you start to evaluate the players, you have a list of attributes that you want at every position. Offensive line, the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, the quarterbacks. And the scouts are all over the country scouting these guys, and they're gathering names and information, their measurables, their height, their weight, their 40 time. And they're watching all the film. And those guys, the scouts from each region, bring all of that information back to the coaches and go, guys, what are you looking for? And they know what you're looking for as a coach, because they sit you down before they go out and go, guys, what are you looking for at that particular position? And they go out and they do all the dirty work. Those guys, like I said, they work hard. And the thing is, like all those GMs like Goody and John Schneider and all those guys were scouts, regional scouts. So all those guys have been brought up from the basement level and learning the system. And they're good GMs. I mean, you don't get the chance to be that guy. Ryan Poles, we had him. He's over down in Chicago, but he started as a scout right out of college. So, but you're looking for, as a position coach, you're looking for attributes like offensive lineman. Is his quickness, his agility? Can he bend his knees? You don't want like offensive linemen that can't bend their knees and they're like waist benders.
Yeah.
That means that they cannot move in space. So, but like that, and then like for the receivers, they will take every single pass that they had in their career and all the completions and all the drops and everything, and it's so intensive. They will look at every single catch that kid had as a receiver, or every ball thrown at him as a receiver. For an example, when I was at BC and I had Matt Ryan, Bill Parcells called me. He goes, I want every throw that kid ever made so that he could evaluate him. I mean, I'm saying, guys, it is super, super detailed, and they dig in on these guys and they find out. And there is through the league, they have private investigators go out and research these guys. If they have some problems, they will dig it out and they will find out. Because here's the thing, there's so much money involved. There's millions and billions of dollars in the NFL. Yeah. And you cannot afford, if you only got like 7 picks or 6 picks, you can't afford to make one with a guy with a character flaw, but they will go ahead and dig that out. Let's say that we're at the combine. You have like 10 guys that you get a chance to bring in. So they're at the Holiday Inn, they're in Indianapolis, and each team has their own room that they have. And you have interviews with 10 to 15 different players that they come in, and they just grill the guy and they sit him down, like say that there is a problem, like a character flaw in a kid. I remember there's a receiver from Missouri that he had brought a gun to like a frat party, and he got caught. And they bring all that stuff up, explain that to you. And here's the thing though, the agents always have those guys. Those agents always have those guys coached up, on what to say and what not to say. So, but though it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of guys and a lot of competition there. And the thing is, like, say if you had like their tight ends, all the tight ends, just look at the guys at the Packers. They're all like 6'4", 6'5", 245 to 260 pounds. And when those guys come to the combine, they all look like that. And it's kind of like a meat market, because they make you stand up in front of everybody and turn your back. And you guys have all seen the Tom Brady photo. They try to get rid of that, but they can never get rid of that. But that's what they do. I mean, it's front, turn around, what's your weight? They strip you down. It's like a show horse and see every part of the guy. But it's fun. It is a lot of fun there, but it's very informative. They strip a guy down from head to toe.
I think it's a JW Marriott now, Coach. They've upgraded now.
Remember when it used to be it was kind of like a Holidome at the Holiday Inn?
Yeah, it's now they've upgraded the accommodations. It's a much nicer hotel now, thank goodness. Also, Coach, you may be interested to know, Matt LaFleur does not send his coaches anymore. The guys do not go down there, and I have correct, and I have a theory about this. My theory is, because I know for a fact that he has been very adamant of not letting his coaching staff get poached. I think he doesn't want them networking. I think he doesn't want them down there talking to other coaches. No. And all of a sudden, like Sean Mannion, if he gets to go to the combine, maybe he gets to talking to Kevin Patullo, or he gets to talking to Nick Sirianni when he's a receiver coach. And then a year or two down the line, one of those guys gets a head coaching opportunity. Oh, hey, I had steak and beers at the combine with that guy. He seems like a good guy. That's my low stakes.
But doesn't that happen anyway though, Peter? And Matt LaFleur's never held his guys from getting, going to an interview and elevating in a position. Well, he hasn't done what Mike McCarthy used to do. He doesn't block anybody.
Yes, he
could have blocked. He could have blocked Sean Mannion.
No, not from being a coordinator.
He could have fired. He could have let go of Adam Stenavich and elevated Sean.
But even that, Brandon, because it's a bona fide coordinator position where he's calling plays.
Sure.
Unless he was going to relinquish play calling, he
right,
could not have elevated
fans would have
Sean
been
Mannion just offensive coordinator. Now he could have said, "Hey, Sean, we're going to elevate you here at offensive coordinator. Don't go take that job," and then he could decide not to do that. But I'm saying, if you're a offensive line coach and they want to interview you for a passing game coordinator position, Matt can block those, and he does, and every coach does. Remember, Kyle Shanahan famously did not let Matt LaFleur hire Mike LaFleur, his own brother, because he wasn't getting to call plays in Green Bay. It was going to be an offensive coordinator or passing game coordinator. I don't remember exactly the details, but anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down on my low stakes conspiracy theory here. But Coach,
Peter, he doesn't let the coaches go to the combine?
It's not that he doesn't let them. He gives them work to do so that they can't do it, basically.
Huh. Wow. I've never heard that. It was always good to have eyes, as many eyes as you could on a guy, and then come to a certain consensus. Because once all of these guys get done with this, then they go into the draft room and they got all this information. So Ron Wolf always wanted everybody's eyes on them. And, you get a chance to interview each of those players too. I mean, you sit down with them and you interview them, and you get face to face with these guys, and you get to know their personalities. And like a lot of those guys are really coached up by agents, but you still get a good feel for those guys. And when we were in Green Bay, we were at the Senior Bowl, and we coached in the Senior Bowl, and it was a great deal because we got a chance to see all of the really good players at the Senior Bowl, and all those guys probably at the combine. So you got a chance to know those guys. But that's interesting that he would not want those guys there.
Well, what's happening around the league, Coach, and Brandon, for you too, and for the audience at home, obviously, a lot of teams now, or more and more teams now, are removing the coaches from the early parts of the process. And the reason is because they complicate the process. You fall in love with the guy at the combine, and now you got a coach banging the table for a guy, and the GM's going, well, we don't like that guy. And so now you have to have these arguments in the draft room over the course of months and on draft day, where it's like, well, if we just take them out and we make it more of a, let's just watch the tape, let's trust our scouts. I think that's the process that general managers would generally prefer. The flip side of that, though, is, and the example I always like to use, Coach, and I'm so glad you fleshed out the process for us of, okay, the scouts and the director of player personnel and the GMs are going, hey, coaches, what are you looking for? What do you think the team needs? And you get Mike Montgomery a couple years ago said in a pre-draft press conference, we want a penetrating three technique. We want a guy that can get up the field and get in the backfield. And who did they use their first round pick on in 2022? Devontae Wyatt. That was, I'm sure, a conversation where the defensive coaches are going, hey, we could really take this defense up a notch if we could get an off-ball linebacker who could move and a penetrating three technique. And they go out and they don't change their process, right? The coaches are still, they're saying this is what we want. But Brian Gutekunst and the talent evaluators are going, okay, hey, Quay Walker, we love him. Devontae Wyatt, we love him at these positions. They meet X, Y, and Z criteria for us. We love the tape. We love the mental makeup, all those things. Devontae Wyatt was a player they probably had to dig into because he had some attitude and coachability concerns coming out of school. And you got to know, right? You have to know what you're getting so the coaches can kind of set the table. And then the front office is still the ones ultimately going, all right, these are the best guys at those spots. If this is what we want, this is where you're going to be able to get those guys. Coach, from your perspective, I'm curious, like, do you ever offer, hey, we'd really like a guy who could come in and play right away versus we're looking upside? Like, that's always the push pull, right? Of the front office is looking at upside, whereas coaches generally want guys that can come in and play.
Yeah, they do. But the thing is, how many rookies get a chance to contribute right away? We talked about that with the Green Bay Packers. So a lot of times, most of the upper draft picks, the higher round guys get a lot more opportunities than the lower round guys do. That's just the way it is, because that's where follow the money. That's where it is. But the thing is, like, the scouts would go out and they wouldn't bring you like 80 players. They wouldn't do that. They go, this is what fits what you guys want. And there might be, like, for an offensive lineman, you may have maybe 15 guys that you're going to evaluate, and you guys whittle it down because you don't have time. But just think, if you have 15 guys that you're evaluating and you're only going to take 2 of them, so you have to have a big enough list to generate up onto your board. But
how big was the board, Coach, when you were in Green Bay?
How big was it? Well, it was 7. So it was 7 rounds, and you had to have enough picks. If they started peeling those names off the board, you had to have enough picks to make sure that there was names still up there.
Because some teams, like the famous story about the Patriots board was it was never more than 100 guys. It was like between 80 and 100 guys, because there were certain guys, we're not picking those guys. Like, we're just not, and it's not always about character. It's just like, we don't like them. Yeah. So if we don't like them, we're just not like, it was like they got with the scouting staff and everybody, and they said, okay, these are the 100 players or the 80 players we want to draft.
Yep.
And it was why the Patriots would take a Cole Strange. It's why they would take a guy in the second round that we all thought was going to be 5th or 6th rounder. Cause it's like, well, we kind of run out of guys. Like, these are the guys we like. And so we're only going to take guys we like, which in some ways it feels like a smart way to do this, right? Like in fantasy football, I know it's a very different thing, but you hate to draft a guy and you're just like, oh, I don't want this guy on my team. Like, I know by the boards, this is the next guy, but like, I just don't really like,
I know he's going to get hurt by week 8.
Right. And you're just sort of like, God, I got Jerry Jeudy on my team. I don't want to have I don't want to be dealing with Joe Flacco. Like, I feel like that has to come into this too, where you're just sort of like, there's guys you want to draft, and there's coach. There's the stars too, right? Like, the scouts are going, this is the guy I'm banging the table for. The coach is going, hey, I really like this guy. Let's see if we can find a way to get him.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Like, the way the draft board works too is, like, they always say, like, trust the board. So just an example, like Chad Clifton out of Tennessee, played for a long time, great football player.
Yeah.
And he was a left tackle from Tennessee, and he was a 1st round pick for us on the board. And all of a sudden we get down to the 2nd round and we still have a 1st rounder sitting there up on the board. That's the guy that they peeled off.
Yeah. You ran that pick in, I'm sure.
But the thing is, and here's the deal, the knock on Chad was that he couldn't learn because he was like dyslexic. So you had to flip everything. And that really never became really a problem for us. But that was the knock on him, that he couldn't learn. And the guy ended up playing for the Packers for years and years and years. And another thing that they would have, like, so they would have, like, Peter, they'd have your name on board. They'd have Brandon's name on board. And if Ron had a sticker system. So if there was like a Mr. Yuck sign by that guy's name, it was a bad agent. You got to better be aware. If there was a guy with like a syringe or an ambulance sticker next to his name, might be a drug problem. If he had like a bomb with with a fuse, it's a little cherry bomb, and that was a sticker there. It's like, this guy's got some mental problems. And I'm not going to say any names, but what
about positive stickers? Any positive stickers?
Well, those were kind of knocks on the guy. I mean, if there wasn't anything on there, go like, this guy's gonna be okay. But there was a guy, I don't know if I probably shouldn't mention his name, but he had a bomb sticker. And he ended up playing. He was a quarterback, I'm going to say, from West Virginia, and he played at hell, why not? He played with the St. Louis Rams, and he had that on there, and he ended up being okay. But there was something in that guy's background where this guy may have a problem, mentally. So, but anyway, everybody knew what those stickers meant. Fun.
The NFL Draft Combine, the first block in the offseason for the NFL. Next up, free agency. And if the Packers decide to open the checkbook this offseason, the trenches and the tight end room could be the first on the list. But which group actually really, really needs that upgrade? We'll dive into those details on the next block of our free agency focus, next on the Locked On Packers Squad Show. Tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one between those busy work days, those cold winter nights, and the packed schedules. Having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. It takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with an easy-to-follow recipe that actually tastes great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Those meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or those quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-size meals and different dietary choices. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering Locked On Packers listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and the best part, free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com FanDuel.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box. You get free shipping. And like I said before, you get free dessert for life. Who doesn't love free dessert? Must be an active subscriber, though, to receive that free dessert. Head to homechef.com/lockedon today. The offseason is underway in Green Bay. And last week, gentlemen, we went through what was our first edition of the free agency focus. We looked at the quarterback room. I think we would all agree that Malik Willis is probably on his way out of Green Bay. I don't see eventually where he winds up, but we looked at the quarterback room. We looked at the running back room. By the way, Brian Gutekunst mentioning Josh Jacobs will be here next year. We heard that before, so we'll see if that actually comes to fruition for the Green Bay Packers. And we also looked at the wide receiver room and the players that we would extend, who we would not extend, who we would possibly trade. And it's another edition. We're going to begin with the biggest question, one of the biggest question marks. I think it's one of the two biggest question marks on this team, and it's the offensive line. And I want to start, Peter, with you, and I want to start with who are the unrestricted free agents on this Green Bay Packers roster currently, and who you would or you would not try to retain if you are Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball. And I want to start at the center position. He was right guard to begin the year, but I want to start at the center position. Sean Rhyan is expected to be an unrestricted free agent, 25 years old, been in the NFL for 4 seasons. Any interest in retaining Sean Rhyan going forward? And it looks like we have his Peter's mic is.
I got you.
There you
I
go.
got you. I was trying to be quiet during your ad read. My bad.
Free dessert at Home Chef, by the way, Peter. If you sign up,
making me hungry. And now I got distracted thinking about the food I haven't eaten today. The thing about Sean Rhyan is they drafted him, and I think that's always going to matter to a front office. But it's going to be about cost because they drafted John Runyon Jr. too. And I think he just priced himself out of Green Bay. I mean, the Giants gave him $10 million a year. And that was the guy that they weren't sure they wanted to start. So it's like, okay, if he's going to get $8, $9, $10 million on the open market, I think it's going to be, vaya con Dios, good luck. And we'll see you when we see you. If he took, and the name that I have thrown out there in the past is if he would take the Lucas Patrick deal that he signed once upon a time, where it's like, you're really a priority backup, but we think you can start in a pinch for us. Then that price becomes, I think more tenable if it's $4 million, $6 million, something in that range. That's just not very much money is the problem. And I think you can get centers on the open market for less. The other part, and something we talked or we'll be talking about by the time you listen to this, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, what day is it? Is the Packers have been okay starting rookie centers. They did it with Corey Linsley.
Yep.
They did it with Josh Myers with draft picks, and they went in and like Corey Linsley, they waited until day 3 to take Corey Linsley. Josh Myers, they clearly wanted him. And by the way, they should have taken Creed Humphrey pretty obviously. Creed Humphrey, an all-pro center, and they had the chance to pick him there, but they're comfortable doing that. And Brian Gutekunst reiterated on Tuesday that they're comfortable doing that, and they would be comfortable doing it again. This is a good center class. There's some quality players, even if it's not, the high first round guys. Doesn't matter for Green Bay anyway. They don't have a high first round pick. So this is I think a chance for them to just say, you know what, Jacob Monk is the developmental guy on the roster. They have shown no interest in playing him ever. Lecitus Smith played in a playoff game, and he didn't look like the answer for sure. So he was someone we talked about after the Vikings game, was just brutal in that game. And so I think they're going to be comfortable going into the draft and saying, we'll find somebody, we'll figure it out.
Coach, the money's probably going to be too tight for Rasheed Walker. Do you think the Packers should try to make a play to keep him at left tackle? Jordan Morgan is obviously the other name that has been mentioned to take over that left tackle position. Brian Gutekunst all but saying he essentially won that left tackle competition over the summer, Coach, but because of his flexibility at the other positions, they wanted to keep Jordan Morgan kind of freed up. Rasheed Walker, 26 years old, also been in the NFL the same amount of time as Sean Rhyan, 4 years. He was a former 7th round pick. What did you think of the play of Rasheed Walker? And do you think that's somebody the Packers should at least try to retain?
Here's the thing, guys, like left tackles, they're hard to come by. They're just not like walking down the street, and they are really hard to come by. And if you've got a guy that you've been developing unless the guy is that guy just can't play, I'd keep those guys around because they're just hard to find.
All right, Peter, I'm going to throw some names at you in the free agent market that could be a realistic option for the Green Bay Packers. Would we agree that Tyler Linderbaum is probably not going to be a realistic chance for the Packers? Although I wouldn't surprise me.
You said on my show you
did.
Thought that he would be, the perfect Packer.
I did. And again, I don't know how some of these teams and this is the other thing too, like a lot of Packer fans are critical of Brian Gutekunst and the way they operate and the Green Bay Packers as a whole. But when teams allow guys like Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Tyler Linderbaum literally the entering the prime of their careers to enter free agency, it absolutely blows my mind. He's 25 years old, been in the NFL 4 years. His projected salary, Peter, is looking at $17.7 million. So again, this is nothing set in stone, but would that be your number one option at the center position, maybe in the offensive line position, period?
No, because I just don't think for Green Bay, it moves the needle enough. I think that the Packers are kind of telling you how they feel about the center position. They've, again, multiple draft picks where they've just said a rookie is fine with us. And last year it was moving a player who's never really been a center full time to center and just saying, we're fine. In the last year of your deal, Elton Jenkins, it's been reported he's going to be cut. That's like knock me over with a feather. We all saw that coming. And you know who else saw that coming, Coach? Elton Jenkins. That's why he held out last year, is because he wanted some assurances. Hey, if I'm going to take this risk for you, I should be paid. I should be compensated for it. He wasn't. And he got hurt, which is exactly what he was trying to guard against. So by the way, I saw both sides of that. I totally understood why Elton Jenkins was like, hey guys, if you're going to hurt my market value, I would like to be compensated for it. And he was exactly right to worry about that risk. I still think he's going to get, if he's healthy going into the offseason and gets cut, I think he's going to have a healthy market. But I think that they need to be looking at, sort of the bargain basement, the Matt Hennessy's of the world that are going to cost $1 million, $2 million. They also generally like players who can play multiple positions. Yep. So are you a guard who can play center? Are you a center who can play guard? I think that's the kind of thing they'd like to have. And that's why they tend to go in the draft more often, is because they want that positional flexibility, especially with a backup coach. Like when you have a backup offensive lineman in a perfect world, right? Like you have 5 starters in a perfect world. You have 3 or 4 guys who can kind of play anywhere.
They have to be that way. And I know we got stuck last year with just sliding guys all over the place, And I was always a proponent of like, try to keep that guy on the left side or on the right side. And the thing about the centers, when we were drafting centers, and you guys, I don't know if they even use the Wonderlic test. Do they still use that deal?
I think they still do the Wonderlic, but they also now do these like more intensive cognitive tests.
Okay. So it used to be like you would never take, and I got this from Alex Gibbs. He goes, Jags never take a center that's under 26 because
26, the magic number.
Well, the thing is, because imagine you got your center and he's got the ball every snap, and he's the guy that has to make the line calls, the line adjustments. That guy's got to be really, really a smart guy, and those guys are hard to come by too. They all are, just being in this league I'm in now, man, they're not out there. You're just digging for guys, but that center's got to be a smart guy. And if you're trying to like a bargain basement, I hated when you said that, Peter, because you get what you pay for, right? Yeah. And
but if you want a guy that you just sort of like, he's a backstop, like that's sort of what I'm thinking. Like I think they'll go into this draft and pick somebody, and then also they'll have a backup, a veteran backup, because I don't think you can have a rookie and then someone you don't know if you can play. Like if you had Elton Jenkins and you could just slide him in there if you needed to, or you had Sean Ryan and you could just slide him in there if you needed to, I think it'd be a different proposition. You mentioned the line calls, Coach. I think one of the reasons why the Packers have been so willing to go with these rookie centers is because they had Aaron Rodgers. 2014, it was Corey Linsley. 2021, it was Josh Myers. Can you just walk us through, Jordan Love, we saw this year, I think more than ever before, making protection calls and those sorts of different things. So what's the difference between, the quarterback gets under center and he's yelling out the protections. Yeah. What does the center then have to orchestrate? What a great thing that you're talking about, because we're going through that like right now, because we've got a quarterback that the coordinator wants him to make the mic call, like the direction of the play. And
you'll see the quarterback can do it. That's great. But I've always had a lineman that, like the center, I'll take care of it. So we've got a kid out of Kansas, played with the Colts a little bit on their practice squad, and we're teaching him how to identify the mic, and we're not sure if he can do it or not. Like a guy like Rodgers and all those guys can redirect and all that. And that's really helpful if you have a guy that can do that. I think Love does that.
Yeah.
Protections and all that. He's been in it long enough to be able to do it. But when you have like a really young quarterback that's never done that, that's a big undertaking. Because imagine doing that, having to change a play, can it, and all that, and then still identify who we're working to. So that is a big undertaking. And if you have an older guy that's done it at center, and that's one of those things you're going, hey, did you make the mic calls at center? Oh yeah, I made them all, and I made all the protection adjustments and all that. I mean, that's a big plus. But you're right, like Rodgers, and Favre, all those guys, they just directed it back and forth.
It's why teams like to, if they can, pair a veteran center with a young quarterback, so that you can just let, like Jason Kelce could do it in Philly while Jalen Hurts got up to speed. I think that's such an advantage for those guys, and it's just not something the Packers just don't have to worry about. And you'll see
it all the time. You'll see like, why is that? Who's that center pointing to, right? Or who's that quarterback pointing to? Well, that's exactly what they're doing. They're setting the scheme for the whole front. And like I said, if you have a quarterback that can do that, man, what a plus that is.
Before we move on to the tight end room, one guy, Peter, that I should have brought up on Friday that I didn't bring up for our Sunday OT show, Tevin Jenkins, the guard, all 17 games last year. Like the injury knock was the big thing with Tevin Jenkins. I do think, is there any concern with you, Peter, with the depth of this starting line for the Green Bay Packers for what we know right now currently? Obviously,
the problem is bringing in a guy who's hurt. It just might not.
But
help
he played 17 games.
Like did, but he's had injury issues his whole career.
Correct.
I mean, that would be why you'd be getting him at a discount. And so then it's like, what is your appetite for risk? You bring in a guy who could compete to start for you. But then, what does that do if now you're constantly worrying about, is he in the lineup? Is he not? I think last year you could make a more compelling case, right? Like, hey, let's and Wendell Fajeda, who works for A to Z, he made the case that last year Tevin Jenkins was the guard to sign, not Aaron Banks. And guess who was a better player? Tevin Jenkins. But you were taking a risk. The difference was you had Elton Jenkins, if it wasn't working out, that you could slide in there. You could move Sean Ryan to center. You could have Jordan Morgan play guard. Now that was all moot because injuries, made that whole thing fakakta. But like that is something that I do think is relevant here. And it's something that the Packers are going to have to be aware of because they do have depth problems with this offensive line. So what do you want to do to fix that? When that's been the case before, Brian Gutekunst has consistently gone out, whether it was Jared Valdir, whether it was Dennis Kelly, whether it was Rick Wagner, he has consistently gone out when they've had some of these depth questions and signed veteran players.
Oh, Darian Kennard could be another example.
Darian Kennard is a great one that he was able to get right before the season. I mean, just think about some of the moves that he's made right before the season the last couple of years. Malik Willis, Devondre Campbell was a July signing. I mean, Rasul Douglas was I think an early September signing. I mean, some of the moves that they've made have been pretty incredible. And the other part of this that we're not talking about, guys, with free agents is in the next week, 2 week, Jags, these teams are going to start moving on from guys. You start to go through the combine process and it's like, okay, well, we love this center class. We solidified it in Indy. Okay, now our center can be out the door. I think that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on here because players are we just found out Trent Williams might not be a 49er for much longer. Like that's going to throw the tackle market into a lot of flux. This is all going to change like day to day.
Right. And here's the thing too. I mean, when you look at it, it is a business, right? I mean, there are no friendships and like players to coaches, and you never wanted to be a friend because like, hey man, I thought we were boys. No, we weren't. You're a coworker. Sorry. Well, exactly. And I go, I don't want to be your friend. I got nothing in common with you other than 2-3 jet protection. I don't need to be a pal of yours. And I tell you, an old coach told me that. He goes, Jags, he goes, don't socialize with these guys ever, never, ever. Because here's the thing. Hey man, I thought we were tight. I thought we were boys. No, it's coach player relationship. And that's the way it's got to be. And some of those decisions are hard. We got to get rid of a guy, but it's still all about business and who can help us win.
Let's move on to coach's favorite position, the tight end room. for our Green Bay Packers. One unrestricted free agent, John Fitzpatrick, and Josh Wiley, the other restricted free agent. We'll dive into those names here in a minute. But, Peter, how important is it if you're Brian Gutekunst, if you're Russ Ball, to figure out what I would assume is at the top of their list in the contract extension for arguably the best tight end in football, albeit coming off of an ACL injury? How important is that on the Packers to-do list to lock up Tucker Kraft going forward for the long-term future?
In a macro sense, like in a 30,000 foot view sense, it's extremely important. But for the next 3 months, I don't think it's that important because number one, he's cheap right now. So, that's okay. Just let him be cheap while he recovers from ACL. And then if you want to extend him, you can do it in August. You can have they're having those discussions behind the scenes, but I don't think there's not any urgency to get that done. I do think this is a position we have not talked enough about as a Packers,
nation,
community.
Packers nation.
Yeah, because we just talked about it on my show, but I've not seen a lot of discussion on social. I haven't heard a lot of discussion on sports talk radio or anything like that. The Packers losing Tucker Kraft last year was not just about what it did for Tucker Kraft.
Yep.
It was about the fact that the other guys couldn't play.
Yeah.
Like they just were not good enough. And Luke Musgrave, I think he's really talented. I think he's got a lot of physical attributes that are theoretically translatable to the passing game. There's no consistency there at all. And he just can't block. Like he just and
it knew that though.
Coming up. Did, but you expect the coaching staff to be able to get him in there. It's not that he's not willing. He's just not able. And part of it, Coach, I wanted to get your input on this because I was talking through it the other day on the show. And I'm like, I got to ask Coach about this. He's high cut for a tight end.
I know what that means. Yeah.
And I just I feel like with the long legs, he's 6'6". I just feel like he's not able to generate any sort of power with his body because he's so high cut. It's hard for him to get and create leverage. And I think it makes him a little wobbly. Watch the guy try and run. I just don't think he's built to be a blocker. And Fitzpatrick's not a good enough guy to just be a blocker. Yeah. So it's and not a good enough receiver to just be a receiver. So they're kind of caught betwixt and between here, Coach, where it's like they've got this star, but then you usually want your backup tight ends to be your blockers and your special teams guys. And Musgrave's not a blocker or a special teams guy. And none of the other guys are really blockers. So you really have a problem with the rest of your tight end room.
I mean, you really do. And here's the thing. Tucker was so damn good and so productive. And as soon as that was taken out of the mix, I mean, it really threw a spotlight on those other guys and what
you can't play 12. Like they could not play 12 with the other guys.
No, they couldn't. And I tell you, I think at some point they wanted to be a Big 12 team going into that deal. But it's funny when you say a guy like is really high cut, and that's the problem with him, right? He's usually thin hipped, right? And he's not very strong. And where's all your power from? Your power comes from your hips out, as a football player. And the thing is, sometimes like we had like LG Crumpler, and he could do it all of it. And then I had three tight ends. One guy was more of a special teams receiving tight end. And I had another guy that was nothing but a blocker, a blunt tight end to be able to block. Now he wasn't he could catch a pass, but he wasn't the guy that you wanted him to go out for passes on. So, but I agree. I think that they became exposed more than anything. I think the word was at that tight end spot. And I was the biggest fan of Tucker Kraft going into it. I said, man, this guy's one of the best tight ends in the league for sure. Early in the season, the guy was so damn productive. And you guys kept saying that like Musgrave was higher drafted than him, right? That just goes to show you, right? You're not always right.
Right.
You're not always right about it.
It's why Gutekunst loves the double up, Coach.
I was going to say,
when in 2018 they needed corners, he drafted two. He went first and second round. I mean, that's the old Ron Wolf, right? Like the post Randy Moss season, they draft three corners right in a row because it's like, well, what are we going to do with Chris Carter and Randy Moss? We got no chance with these guys. So when he sees a problem, he's going to throw picks at the problem. I don't think they're going to do that at tight end this year with Tucker Kraft. Right. It's as you were talking to me about, Coach, about the Falcons room that you had. Mm-hmm. Crumpler, a blocker, and a special teams receiver.
Well, I had his name was Eric Beverly, and he was an offensive lineman.
I remember Eric Beverly. Yeah. That seems like the perfect build for a room is you have your do-it-all guy who's the starter. You've got your special teams speed guy, like, right. That's why he's a good special teams player, because he's fast, so receiver type. And then you've got your blocker. The Packers have their do-it-all guy. They don't have the other two guys. And so that's like, you got to have at least one of those other two. You go back to like 2010 guys. I love that tight end room, even though they didn't have a star, because Corliss could run, but he could also do enough in the blocking game. They had David Lee, who was a really good receiving tight end. And then they had a sort of cadre of guys after that. That's why, that's how a guy like Spencer Havner stays in the league. It's how a guy like Ryan Taylor stays in the league, because they're special teams, blocker, tight ends. And every team, you got to have two of those guys.
There's no question. You do. Go ahead.
Any interest in John Fitzpatrick, Josh Whyle then, Peter? I think the Green Bay Packers in 2026?
You can tender Josh Whyle at a low figure. The restricted free agency, the way it works is you offer them, there's different tiers of tender, and that is relative to their cost. And then if a team, because they're restricted, if a team wants them, they have to give up the pick commensurate with the cost to get those guys if they want to match the contract. And so what teams usually do is, most guys are getting low tenders. Anyone hitting free agency who's a good player, who's going to get one of the high tenders, is just getting a new contract. Like the team just extends them. So the Packers do have some interesting choices to make with these RFAs. It's really just a way to keep the cost down. It's sort of like a mini franchise tag where it's like, okay, we're going to give you the late round tender or whatever it is. And it's $1 million or $2 million or whatever it is. And it's basically like arbitration in baseball, where it's just sort of like, okay, here's a little bit of a raise, and then we get you for one more year, and then you become an unrestricted free agent. So I like this group. I could take or leave, frankly. Like, I like Wiley. I think there's some things to like about him, but if you low round tender him, or I think there's a UDFA tender even, where it's just sort of like, we'll give you the contract, you can take it or not. And, a team can basically get you for free if you offer it. I think like something like that makes sense for them, just because he's been in the system now. You have some familiarity with him, but I'm not spending some significant material money. I'm not spending really anything to bring back someone like John Fitzpatrick, especially coming off a serious injury. Like, if he can't play right away, what sort of utility does he have for me? This is a good tight end class in the draft. I would take a couple guys on day 3. My longtime theory on this, guys, and if you haven't heard it, the listeners have heard it, but like, Coach, my thing on tight ends, if I were a GM, I'd take one every year in rounds 4 through 6. Just take some guys, and one of these years I'm going to hit on George Kittle. One of these years I'm going to hit on Tucker Kraft. That's where they all come from. They all come from rounds 3 through 6. Yep. And if you don't have a good football player, or like that, a star player, you have guys who can play special teams for you, probably. Like, that would sort of be the way that I would approach it.
Here's the thing too, the game's changed so much, in the tight end position out of college, you don't have like that guy, right? A lot of teams want to play 10, right? Yeah. And they want to play 11, but and
all the tight ends in college are joker tight ends. They're all slots.
They are. Exactly. So again, those guys aren't like a plenty around. And I remember even back, I go, where are all the tight ends? You know where they were? They were all playing power forward on the basketball team.
Yeah, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. Yeah,
well, right. I mean,
Tony Gonzalez.
100%, right? I remember Gonzalez when he used that Cal. I go, who is this guy? what a great player. But yeah, I mean, just the way things have changed. Like, that position is not being developed like it used to be. Now, it might because teams are playing more 12 to get some bigger tight ends in there, but they got to be 260, 255, 260. Yeah. And then it's like,
you're still doing the basketball conversion thing, Coach. I mean, Julius Thomas, not that long ago for Denver. I mean, they plucked him out basically out of obscurity and turned him into an all-pro.
Yeah. Well, again, they have to be athletic. The thing is, they have to be a hybrid of everything, right? They got to be a blocker. They got to be a receiver. They have to do it all, and then be a good special teams player, and that's how those tight ends usually stick, is being good teams guys.
And that's why it takes so long for them to come along, is you got to learn the blocking schemes. You got to learn the pass concepts, all of it. And you'll hear people in the league saying, your quarterback is going to take the longest because of the complexity of the position. But on offense, the second longest is tight end because of for all the same reasons.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's such a hybrid position, and you have to steal time. So as a tight end coach, you are coaching everything. You're a line coach, you're a receiver coach, you're a special teams coach. You got to do it all. And the thing is, like, as you're learning as a coach from that position, it was Andy Reid Mike Sherman. All those guys were tight end coaches before they became either quarterback. You either go either way. You either go to the quarterback room or you go to the offensive line room. That's how you do from that position. You go one or the other. And that's where all those guys, have come from in the coaching tree.
That does it for the offensive side of our free agency focus. One more position here to cap off the second edition of our free agency focus, and another position of concern if you're a Green Bay Packer fan, I would assume. Interior defensive line. Coach, before we get into some names, what were your overall thoughts on the Green Bay Packers interior defensive line in 2025?
Oh, boy. Van Ness is the guy that comes to mind, right? As far as him not being able to be real productive. He was hurt.
Missed a boatload of games, yeah.
And, so.
Devontae Wyatt also in that group who got hurt, broke his leg.
Kind of banged up. I thought those guys were solid. The guy that, not saying the interior guy, but the guy that I thought was really disappointing was Gary. He just was really disappointing this year, especially being on the other side of Micah Parsons.
Jonathan Ford, Peter, the only free agent for the Green Bay Packers for the interior defensive line, is a restricted free agent, 27 years old. Is this a position, do you think, Peter, given where the Packers are, we all agreed the championship window is certainly open. There are plenty of free agents on the interior defensive line in the NFL. You mentioned it earlier with these guys at the combine, looking at these prospects. It might even open up more eyes and more people into that position. Is this a position where Green Bay, if they are going to go into free agency, we also agreed that, offensive line needs attention. We'll get into the cornerback room a couple of weeks down the road, but is this a position, do you think, that the Packers should spend a little bit of money in free agency to upgrade the interior defensive line? We do know that Devontae Wyatt should be fully healthy in 2026, but Jonathan Ford, the only restricted free agent. So the Packers aren't losing a ton of guys they had a year ago, but that wasn't necessarily a position of strength a year ago.
Yeah, the name that stands out to me is DJ Reader from the Lions. They drafted Tyleik Williams last year in the first round, big nose tackle. They have Alim McNeill on an extension that kicks in this season, and he's a core piece for them. I don't expect DJ Reader to be back in Detroit. He does turn 32 this year, so it'd be a little out of character for them. But the projection of what he's expected to get on the open market, Spotrac has him at $3.8 million.
Yeah,
like that just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Absolutely.
Now my guess is he's going to have plenty of suitors for what he is, because I think that he can help a lot of teams like Buffalo, teams like Green Bay that fancy themselves as title contenders this year, but just need that one guy to come in and really stabilize the run defense. I think he's capable of doing that. And we talked about this the other day, guys. Like, I think he's going to stay in Dallas, but what if Kenny Clark becomes available on the open market? Like, is that something that Green Bay would entertain? Is that bridge burned? I don't know. Kyrus Tonga is another name from New England. I thought he was really vital to what they did in their run defense. Their run defense suffered in New England when he was off the field, but he's another guy who's projected in that sort of $3 million range. There's a ton of guys, if you look at Spotrac, projected in that sort of $3 to $5 million range.
Very affordable. Maybe I'm crazy, but it's just
money.
No
money for a defensive lineman, right? $3 to $5 million. That's pretty good bargain.
Andrew Billings is another name I threw in on my list. He'll be, I think, 31 when the season starts.
31. But a familiarity in the division, played in Chicago. So, and then, we can't forget, like, Calais Campbell. I think his market value is going to be much higher, but would he want to come play for Jonathan Gannon again, chase a Super Bowl? He made $5.5 million. His projected market value is $11 million. I frankly don't think he will get that on the open market at he's going to turn 40 this year. I think that would be wild. I think he's probably going to get between 5 and 8. And if I were the Packers, I would probably stop at about 8 or 9, but I would be willing to do that if I were him. And John Franklin Myers is another name projected in that $7-8 million range. I think that would be a good use of resources there for him. I think he could actually get really paid this offseason. I think a team like Cincinnati could see that and go, this guy could really elevate the defense.
There you have it, our second edition of our free agency focus, looking at the offensive line, the defensive line, and the tight end room. We'll see if the Packers spend a little bit in free agency, but they might not have to. The biggest improvement for this team just might not come from outside the building. It might come from somebody already in that locker room. So the question begs to be answered. Which current Packer has the biggest leap to take in 2026? Our answers next on the Locked On Packers Squad Show. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost at any NBA future, and you'll be automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. The flights, the tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, maybe it's the Milwaukee Bucks. Right now is the perfect time for you to lock in. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Once again, visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Gentlemen, we got about 10 minutes left in the program, and I wanted to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of optimism as we look ahead to the year 2026. I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about the Green Bay Packers Super Bowl window. We talked about that ridiculous article at NFL.com where they had didn't have the Packers at all in the top 7 biggest Super Bowl windows. Instead, they had the Chicago Bears in there. The Jacksonville Jaguars were also in there. Coach, if you had to pinpoint a certain player, and it can be any player, before we talked about younger player, what year 1 or year 2 player needs to make the biggest jump from that previous year to this upcoming year to give the Green Bay Packers a chance at getting to a Super Bowl? Coach, any player on the roster, which one has the most to prove in 2026?
First of all, I want to just say that you are Mr. Optimistic, as we all know on this show, Brandon.
I have been known to go by that name, Coach. That nickname. Thank you. Thank you.
But I tell you who I'd like to see make some really big strides because he is a #1 pick is Matthew Golden. I would really like to see him blossom in the second year. I really would. So I think he could have a really big year. I really do. I think he's a really talented guy. He just needs to have more exposure.
You would put him, not to jump on your idea, Coach, would you put him ahead of Jaden Reed as the most to prove in that receiver room? Would you put him, it pains me to say this because I love him and I bought his jersey at my wedding, Christian Watson, even though he already sort of has a mini extension in place, but is going to be looking for that next payday? He wants to be receiver #1, or at least we all agree that he is.
I think he is.
You don't think those guys have more to prove than Matthew Golden?
Well, again, when you're paying a guy that much money as a #1, when's the last time they took a receiver at #1 in Green Bay?
Yeah,
there's big. Hey,
2002, Coach. You were there probably. I was 7.
Who was Brooks?
Javon Walker.
Yeah, he was a good player, and I tell you, he was super productive. Really good football player. I just think that Golden needs to step up. I mean, I feel really good, about Walker. I think he's a hell of a player, and Reed. But I think Golden really needs to step it up.
All right, Peter. Coach has Matthew Golden. I have it's going to feel like a hot take, but I want you to go first, Peter. Your player that has the most to prove in 2026.
So this is interesting. So most to prove, I always think of most to prove is as like the weightiest expectations on him, or like there's also the flip side of that is, most to gain. Who is the player that has the most to gain? And then there's also whose improvement most improves the Packers. I think those frankly could be 3 different players, honestly. You and I talked about the guys that we thought, hey, if they take a leap next year, it most helps the Packers. I think the guy with the most to prove, and Coach is always big on this, your big money guys have to be your big money guys.
Yeah.
And so I think if he's on the team, I think the answer is Rashawn Gary, because I think that if he's not the guy that they paid him to be, he will not be on this team next year. And there's a reason we're having the conversation of if he's on the team already. Now, Brian Gutekunst was I wouldn't say unequivocal, but was like, we expect him to be here. That wasn't exactly like Rashawn Gary is a core member of our team. He could have said that and didn't. And I think we always have to remember what they omit when general managers and coaches speak. But so I like from that standpoint, I think that is very real for him. I think right behind him though is Lucas Van Ness. Like he was a 1st-round pick. We're now seeing Christian Gonzalez and Jackson Smith-Njigba were 1st-round picks who played in the Super Bowl and have each become like all pro caliber players at their positions and their positions of need at the time for the Packers. Imagine how different this team could be if they had JSN or if they had Christian Gonzalez. I think there's a lot riding both on a lot to prove and a lot to gain. And I think he was a name that you and I brought up, Brandon, on the Sunday OT about if he takes a step forward, just how impactful he could be for this franchise if he is the guy that they drafted him to be, the guy that he looked like he was early in the season last year. Remember how good he was playing early in the season before he got hurt?
Sure.
Like, I just think that could be such a big deal for this team. There's a reason Micah Parsons gravitated toward him immediately when he got to Green Bay. Sure there's just so much talent there.
All right.
Can I guess what you're going to say?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I'm going to get, as the kids say, I'm going to get cooked in the comments, and that's completely fine. I'll stand with this take. And it might shock you guys. It might surprise you guys. And this isn't a negative take on this player. I love this player with all of my heart. I think it's Jordan Love.
That's what I was going to guess.
I think it's Jordan Love. And I'm not calling him out that you got to be better, but
clip this. Brandon Sneide calls out Jordan Love. Clip it.
Somebody certainly will. But we've seen it. We've seen it in Green Bay, you guys, like two times before Jordan Love, like that year 3 to 4 jump, right? We've seen it where guys take that next step. We saw it with Brett Favre. We saw it with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Jordan Love's bad at all. Again, I've made the argument during the regular season, he should be an MVP candidate. He certainly was. He was number 3, according to our friends over at FanDuel, before he suffers that injury in Chicago and is knocked out for essentially the rest of the regular season. I don't think he's a bad player whatsoever. I just think if you're going to be one of the highest paid players in the NFL, you're the highest paid player on the team at the quarterback position, and it's not going to necessarily surprise anybody, but if you're that guy, if you're that quarterback that this team fully believed in when they drafted you in 2020, when they gave you that contract in 2024, when you broke franchise records, the first 3 years of you starting at the quarterback position, you had a good year this year before the injury. Can you take this team to that next level? Because it's always the quarterback, right? You can look at Seattle. I understand Sam Darnold didn't wow anybody in the Super Bowl, but Sam Darnold elevated that team throughout the course of the season. He elevated that team in the NFC Championship game. Can Jordan Love do that? I'm not knocking him for the loss, Peter, coach, in Chicago. I still think he was the best player on that field, but he wasn't the best player on that field when they needed him the most. Can he be that best player on the field consistently for the Green Bay Packers? We know number one on the other side is, when healthy, is going to be. We know that. We know he's going to bring it. We've seen the consistency. Reggie White and Micah Parsons are the only two names for the first 4 years with 10 or more sacks in their career. Like, we know Mike is going to bring that. Can Jordan Love do that week in and week out? Can I go in and expect greatness from Jordan Love like I expect from other quarterbacks throughout the NFL, like I expect from Patrick Mahomes, like I expect from Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson when he decides he wants to play? Can I expect that from Jordan Love? That's where I think the next step needs to come from Jordan Love. He's got the talent. He's got the leadership.
I know we're up against it a little bit here, but
you're gonna kick back at me.
You mentioned Reggie White, and I'm glad you did. How many Super Bowl appearances for Brett Favre without Reggie White? 0.
I mean, well, yes,
0.
without Reggie, correct.
Yeah, 0.
I understand that.
But
Brett Favre also won 3 MVPs.
One real run in 15 years after Reggie White. You need it takes 11 on offense, it takes 11 on defense, and you got your special teams. It takes a team to win. And so I hear you. I think you're right. And the reason I'm so with you is, yeah, I'm with you. is because, like, Aaron Rodgers, again, once Clay Matthews was not Clay Matthews anymore, what kind of success did Aaron Rodgers have? Right? Like, you need those players on both. Yeah. You need your superstar players to be superstars. And without Micah Parsons, without Tucker Kraft, without Zach Tom, it just becomes really hard to win. And so really what you're saying is they need to win. And they need to have those games where you're not going at the end, well, they lost because of XYZ. Here's the problem with that. When you have a great quarterback and you lose, it's usually because the quarterback didn't play great. Like, that's just how it works. The Chiefs lost games last year because Patrick Mahomes didn't play great. The Bills lost games last year because Josh Allen didn't play great. The Bengals have lost a lot of games over the last couple of years because Joe Burrow didn't play great.
Yep.
That's kind of why they're great players, is because if they don't play great, you kind of have no chance. And that's just the reality of the situation. Like, I think Jordan Love wins the Super Bowl with the Seahawks last year. I think Jordan Love wins the Super Bowl with the Eagles 2 years ago because they had their guys. And I'd hate to get back to the injury excuse here. It's more just about they need their best players to play their best when their best is needed. And I remember BJ Raji, I love this quote. He channeled Churchill, I believe, if my memory serves me. And there's this Churchill quote about sometimes your best isn't enough and you need more than your best to win. And you have to find a way to bring it out. And I think that's what you're saying is, okay, you've played great, Jordan Love. You've done everything you can. You have to still give yourself a chance. And I wonder, like Jordan Love, that last play, he drops the ball, his pass ends up like not even giving them a chance. Can you just can that last pass be 10% better? Even if it gets knocked down, you gave yourself a chance. He gave Jaden Reed a chance, dropped the ball on the last drive.
He did. Yeah, he did.
Chance for the walk-off game winner, and Christian couldn't finish it. So those are the things that they're just that far away right now as a team. And that's partially on Jordan Love, but also partially not.
For the record, I do love you, Jordan Love. I know you're a big fan of the Locked On Packers Squad Show, and we appreciate each and every one of you. That too. They probably watch it together. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. That'll conclude our Locked On Packers Squad Show, though. Friendly reminder, the Locked On Packers Squad Show and the Daily Show with our guy, Peter Bukowski, free and available wherever you guys get audio podcasts. We're also available over on YouTube. You can see our beautiful faces. If you're watching on YouTube, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and make sure you hit the notification bell. Get notified when we go live. For Peter, for Coach, and for myself, we will sign off for now. We'll be right back with you on Thursday night, breaking down the NFL Draft Combine and certainly more topics on the Packers off-season checklist. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in each and every single day. Thank you for making Locked On Packers part of your day. And as always, make sure each and every one of you stay locked on Packers.